Have you ever had that gut-wrenching moment when you realize someone you trusted deeply wasn't who you thought they were? It's like the ground beneath you suddenly disappears and you're left wondering, was anything ever real? The words they spoke, the promises they made, all of it now feels hollow. You thought you knew them, or at least you hoped you did. But the moment you stepped back, created some distance, everything became clearer. Suddenly, the truth came to light, raw and unfiltered. Have you ever experienced that feeling? The shock and confusion when you realize you've been deceived by someone close to you, whether it's a friend, a partner, a family member, or even a colleague. It's painful, isn't it? Like you've been blindfolded, only to finally take it off and see the reality of the situation. But here's the thing, in those moments when the truth surfaces, there's something deeper at play. It's not just about the betrayal, it's about the opportunity that comes with it. The opportunity to not only understand the other person, but also to understand yourself. How? By embracing the power of distance. You see, distance, whether physical or emotional, has this incredible way of exposing the truth. When you step back, even if just for a moment, the layers of deception start to peel away. You begin to see things for what they really are, and more importantly, you start to see how you respond. It's about learning to protect yourself and grow from the experience. I know it might feel like betrayal, like you've been deceived in the worst way, and the anger can be overwhelming. But have you ever stopped to ask why you were so blindsided? What role did you play in not seeing the signs earlier? Sometimes the real lesson isn't just about the person who lied, it's about how we place our trust and expectations in places that weren't meant to hold them. In this video, How Distance Exposes True Colors, we're going to explore how distance plays a crucial role in revealing people's true nature. It's not just about catching someone in a lie. It's about recognizing the deeper lessons that come from it. We'll also discuss how Stoic philosophers viewed distance, not as a punishment, but as a way to reflect, gain wisdom, and maintain control over our own responses. So, if you've ever felt that sting of betrayal, or if you've been confused by someone's sudden shift in behavior, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to handle these situations, not just with others, but with yourself. And hey, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more insightful content like this. Let's now take a closer look at how distance can help us uncover the truth. So, you've been lied to. How does that feel? You thought you knew them. Maybe they were a friend, a partner, or someone you trusted deeply. But then, one day, everything changed. The moment the truth came to light, it hit you like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just the lie, it was the betrayal. Have you ever had that sinking feeling when the realization hits you hard? When you understand that someone you trusted was never who you thought they were? It's like the world shifts under your feet, and for a moment, you don't know what's real anymore. That feeling, it's betrayal, and it's one of the most painful emotions we can experience. Trust isn't just an abstract concept. It's the foundation of every relationship we have. When that trust is broken, it's not just the person who lied who suffers, it's also you as the one who believed in them. Let me tell you a story. Imagine someone who's been your closest friend for years. You've shared everything with them, your hopes, your fears, your dreams. You trust them more than anyone else, but then out of nowhere, you find out they've been hiding something from you, something big. You feel a mix of emotions, confusion, disbelief, and a deep, gnawing pain. How could they lie to you? How could someone you trusted so much betray you like that? In this moment, it's not just the fact that they lied, it's how the lie makes you question everything. Was anything they said to you real? Did they really care about you? Or was all of it just a performance? This is the psychological shock. of realizing that what you believed in wasn't true. It shakes your perception of reality, and you start to wonder if your judgment can ever be trusted again. The truth is, lies hurt more when we trust deeply. Why? Because trust is built on vulnerability. When you open up to someone, you're letting your guard down. You're giving them the power to either honor your trust or crush it. And when that trust is betrayed, it doesn't just wound you emotionally. It can feel like a complete betrayal of your very sense of judgment. Psychologically, this can have a lasting impact. Studies show that betrayal activates the same areas in the brain that respond to physical pain. It's as though your brain experiences the emotional wound as if it were a physical injury. The pain can be so intense that it lingers, affecting your future relationships, your trust in others, and even your self-esteem. It's not just about the lie. It's about the impact it has on how you see the world and others. Now let's look at this from a Stoic perspective. The Stoics, great philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, understood the devastating impact of betrayal. But they also knew how to approach it with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, for example, wrote that we should not let the actions of others disturb our peace of mind. He said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." In other words, when someone lies to you, it's not about them. It's about how you choose to respond. The Stoic teaches us not to let betrayal define our emotional state. Seneca, too, warned against giving our trust blindly. He recognized that people often deceive others, not because of who they are, but because of who we allow them to be in our lives. He said, "The greatest remedy for deceit is to avoid excessive trust in others." The Stoic view isn't about avoiding people or shutting yourself off. It's about guarding your trust and being mindful of who you open yourself up to. Now let me ask you, have you ever felt that rush of emotion, the disbelief, the anger, the hurt, when you realized you'd been lied to? That gut-wrenching feeling when everything you believe to be true crumbles before your eyes. It's tough, but it's also an opportunity to learn, to reflect, and to grow stronger. Because in the end, the power lies not in whether someone else lied to you, but in how you respond. And that's what we're going to explore in the next part of this video. So, why does distance reveal the truth? Let's talk about distance. You know, when you start pulling away from someone, whether it's physically or emotionally, suddenly things start to change. At first, it might feel like a small shift, like maybe you're just going through a phase. But over time, you start to notice something. Their behavior changes too. Have you ever experienced this? You stop giving someone your constant attention, stop being there for them at every turn, and suddenly they act differently. At first you might not even realize it, but before long you see it. Maybe they become more distant, maybe they start acting out, or perhaps they show their true side, the side they've been hiding behind that well-crafted mask. This is what I like to call the mask slip effect. When you stop feeding into their energy, when you stop giving them the validation or attention they've grown accustomed to, that mask they've been wearing starts to slip. The act is over, and their real personality emerges. And sometimes, that truth is a bit unsettling. Let me tell you a story. Think of someone who's always been charming, always been that person you turn to when you need help. They seem caring, trustworthy, even generous with their time and attention. You've always admired them for their strength and loyalty. But then one day you start pulling back. You stop reaching out as much. You stop being the one to initiate contact. And what happens next? The things they used to do for you, they suddenly stop. The promises they made, forgotten. And worst of all, when you reach out, there's no response, or worse, there's a cold, dismissive reply. This isn't just an accident. It's the effect of removing yourself from the equation. You see, when you stop giving someone your attention, it forces them to either step up or show their true nature. And what you might discover can be jarring. That person you thought was a friend, a companion, even a confidant, turns out they were only in it for what they could get when you were always around. When you pull back, you finally see who they really are. And the saddest part? It might not even be intentional. Often people wear these masks, not to deceive, but because they don't know who they are without the attention, the validation, or the constant presence of others. They lose themselves in the act. Now let's take a moment to look at this from a Stoic perspective. Seneca, a great Stoic philosopher, once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." It's a powerful statement. What does it mean? When we're constantly in the thick of a relationship or situation, we often imagine how it's supposed to be, how it should be. We build these expectations in our minds. But when we step back, when we create some distance, we're no longer lost in the imagined version of things. We see reality without the lens of what we hoped it would be. This shift in perspective can be uncomfortable, though. It's hard to see things for what they really are, especially when it challenges what we thought was true. But that discomfort, that's where growth happens. Because once you can face the reality, you can deal with it. You can take the lessons, protect yourself, and move forward wiser than before. Think about it. When you're caught up in someone's presence, it's easy to miss the warning signs. You're caught in the emotion, in the constant exchange, in the give and take. But when you step back, when you put some space between you and them, you have the clarity to truly assess who they are. It's no longer clouded by your attachment or your expectations. But why does this distancing effect make people so uncomfortable? Why does the act of pulling back reveal so much, both about the other person and about yourself? Let's talk about that next. So, why do people get uncomfortable when you start pulling away? Have you ever noticed how some people get uncomfortable when you start pulling away? It's almost like a shift happens, right? Suddenly, they don't know how to respond to your emotional detachment. You stop giving them the attention they've grown accustomed to, and it's like the ground beneath them starts to shake. Why is that? Why does your detachment, something so simple, make others so uneasy? Well, here's the thing. It all comes down to control. When someone has your emotional energy, they have a certain level of power over you. Your attention, your care, it's a form of investment, a form of control that they can tap into whenever they want. And when you start pulling away, you're no longer giving them that control. You're taking back your own power, and for many, that's unsettling. Think about it. Have you ever stopped reaching out, stopped being the one to make all the effort, only to notice that the other person suddenly goes cold or distant? They don't bother to make plans anymore, or they act like nothing's changed. But the moment you stop putting in that emotional labor, it's like the relationship begins to fade in their eyes. They've taken you for granted, and without your constant attention, they can't hold on to the connection the same way. It's a harsh realization, but it's the truth. When someone never truly valued you, it's easy for them to stop making the effort once you stop. Their commitment to you was based on what they could get from you, not who you really were. And when you step back, that becomes clear. Here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes, instead of just letting things fade, people will try to manipulate or guilt trip you to regain control. Ever had someone tell you, "I thought you cared about me," or "Why aren't you there for me anymore?" The tone shifts. The tactics get more emotional, and suddenly you feel this pull to come back. It's almost like they're trying to reel you in again, to pull you back into the emotional cycle where they hold the power. This is manipulation at its finest. It's not about the relationship, it's about regaining control. They don't want to lose their access to your emotional energy. They want you to feel guilty for pulling away, for stepping into your own power. And in some cases, they'll try to make you believe that you're the one in the wrong. But here's the thing. True connections, real relationships don't crumble when distance is introduced. Think about the people in your life who have always been there for you, the ones who truly care, who value you for who you are, not what you can do for them. When you create some space, they don't panic, they don't guilt trip you or pull away from you. Instead, they understand that distance doesn't equal abandonment. It's simply a part of the natural ebb and flow of life. And when you come back, they welcome you with open arms. No manipulation, no games. That's how you know the difference between a real connection and one that was built on the illusion of closeness. Now, let's bring in some Stoic wisdom. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, were masters of emotional detachment. But don't get it twisted. They didn't mean detachment in the sense of coldness or indifference. What they meant was the ability to step back and observe emotions without being controlled by them. For the Stoics, emotional detachment was about maintaining control over your own mind. It was about not letting someone else's behavior, someone else's actions, dictate how you feel or how you respond. Marcus Aurelius famously said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This perspective is a game changer. When you detach emotionally, you're not giving in to the temptation to manipulate or play games. Instead, you're holding on to your own peace, your own sense of self. And when you do this, when you stop giving people that power over you, you start to see them for who they really are. So the next time someone tries to guilt trip you or make you feel bad for pulling away, remember this: you're not the one in the wrong. You're simply reclaiming your power, and by doing so, you're giving them the opportunity to reveal their true intentions. But why does all this make people uncomfortable? Why is emotional detachment so threatening to them? Let's break it down next. So, how do Stoics deal with betrayal and fake people? Now that we've talked about why distance can expose the truth, let's explore how the Stoics would handle betrayal and fake people. Stoic wisdom isn't just about enduring pain or hardship. It's about mastering the emotional storm that follows, especially when it comes to dealing with deception and falsehood. So how do Stoics teach us to handle betrayal when someone we trusted lets us down? The key lies in understanding the difference between control and acceptance. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing we can truly control is our own response. We cannot control the actions of others, no matter how much we wish we could. And that's where the power of acceptance comes in. Rather than railing against the injustice of being lied to or betrayed, the Stoics would have us accept that life is filled with uncertainty, imperfection, and sometimes betrayal. It's not about accepting the wrong or the lie. It's about accepting our own emotional response to it and how we choose to react. Seneca, a prominent Stoic philosopher, said, "If you want to be loved, love." This might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about betrayal, but think about it for a second. Instead of seeking revenge, instead of returning anger with more anger, the Stoics believed that the key to emotional peace is acting with kindness and love, regardless of how others treat you. The focus is on how you choose to respond, not on trying to control the behavior of others. So revenge, it's pointless. The Stoics knew that revenge only perpetuates the cycle of harm. When you seek to get back at someone, you're giving them power over you. You're allowing their betrayal to continue affecting you even after the fact. By seeking revenge, you only keep yourself tangled up in the negativity of the situation. Seneca put it this way: revenge is always the weak pleasure of a little mind. Instead, the Stoics taught us to embrace indifference. Indifference doesn't mean you don't care or that you accept being treated poorly. It means you don't let the actions of others disturb your inner peace. It means you stand strong, rooted in your own values, regardless of what others do. Indifference is a form of emotional freedom. It's knowing that no matter what someone else does, you are not going to let it dictate how you feel or how you live. Now, let's look at 3 practical Stoic strategies for emotional detachment that can help you handle betrayal and fake people. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're actionable steps you can take right now to maintain your composure when things get tough. Technique. Number 1. The power of perception. The first technique is to change how you perceive the situation. When someone betrays you, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeing it as a personal attack. We internalize the betrayal and we begin to believe that it's a reflection of our own worth. But the Stoics would have us see things differently. They'd encourage us to ask, what is the real source of my pain? Is it the action of the other person or my own interpretation of it? If you can shift your perception, you can change your emotional experience. Instead of seeing someone's betrayal as a direct attack on your worth, see it as an opportunity to practice resilience, to reflect on your own values, and to grow stronger. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This means that the very thing that challenges you, the betrayal, the hurt, the disappointment, becomes the thing that helps you grow and evolve. Technique number 2, the practice of negative visualization. The second technique is called negative visualization. This practice might sound strange, but it's one of the most powerful Stoic tools. Negative visualization is the act of imagining the worst-case scenario. It's not about focusing on negativity. It's about preparing yourself mentally for the possibility of loss, disappointment, or betrayal. By regularly practicing negative visualization, you learn to detach from expectations. You train yourself to handle whatever comes your way, no matter how painful. When you imagine the worst possible outcome and then realize you can live through it, you start to let go of the fear of betrayal. This helps you develop emotional resilience, so when the real betrayal happens, it doesn't throw you into a spiral of despair. Technique number 3, reflection and journaling. The third technique is reflection through journaling. The Stoics were known for their habit of journaling as a way to process their thoughts, emotions, and experiences. When faced with betrayal, journaling gives you the space to reflect on what happened, why it hurt, and how you can move forward. It's a way to look at the situation from a distance, to detach emotionally and analyze it logically. Through journaling, you can ask yourself, what lessons can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? What is within my control and what isn't? This process of self-reflection helps you make sense of the situation and regain control over your own emotions, rather than letting someone else's actions control you. Now let's bring this all back to a historical example of how the Stoics applied these principles. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic emperors, faced betrayal more than once during his reign. One of the most notable instances was when his close friend Lucius Verus, whom he had trusted and shared leadership with, passed away, leaving Marcus to rule alone. Despite the betrayal and the political intrigue that surrounded him, Marcus didn't let his emotions rule him. Instead, he continued to practice his Stoic principles. He focused on the greater good, the welfare of his people, and not on personal resentment or vengeance. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself in his journals that the only thing that truly matters is how we respond to external events. Betrayal was simply an opportunity for him to remain true to his character, to embody wisdom and patience, no matter what others did. So how do Stoics handle betrayal and fake people? They handle it with control over their emotions, acceptance of what they can't change, and a steadfast commitment to their own values. They don't seek revenge. They don't let others disturb their peace. And they don't let betrayal define them. But why is it that people can't stand emotional detachment? Why does pulling away expose so much? Let's break that down next. So, how does emotional detachment put you in control? Let's talk about something powerful. What happens when you start emotionally detaching? when you stop reacting to the things that once controlled you. Have you noticed that when you stop giving someone the emotional reaction they're used to, something shifts? It's like the tables turn, and suddenly you're no longer the one waiting for them to show up, apologize, or acknowledge your feelings. Instead, you're in control of the situation, and suddenly you're no longer the one waiting. People start to chase you when you stop reacting. Sounds strange, right? But think about it. When you stop being the one who's always available, always responding, always putting others first, you create a vacuum. And what happens when people sense that? They start to want what they can't have. Suddenly, they're reaching out to you, trying to get your attention, trying to win you back. And why is that? Because people don't like to lose control. When you stop giving them that emotional energy, when you stop reacting to their moves, they lose the one thing they thought they could count on: your attention and emotional investment. It's the psychology of indifference, and it's a secret weapon. When you become indifferent to someone's behavior, whether it's their manipulation, their lies, or their attempts to play with your emotions, you regain control over the situation. It's not about being cold or indifferent in a negative sense. It's about choosing not to let their actions disturb your peace. When you stop letting their behavior affect how you feel, they lose the power they once held over you. So, what are the signs that you're now in control of the situation? First, people stop testing your boundaries. When they see that their usual tactics, guilt-tripping, manipulating, or playing on your emotions, no longer work, they start to back off. It's like they're realizing they can't get the emotional reaction they crave from you anymore. They might try to push your buttons, but when they see that you're not budging, they start to pull back themselves. The second sign is when you stop feeling like you're constantly reacting. Instead of being caught up in the whirlwind of someone else's drama, you find yourself more at peace, more centered. The chaos around you doesn't stir you like it used to. You're no longer a puppet on someone else's strings. Instead, you're standing firm in your own energy, your own sense of self. And then there's the third sign, when you notice that you no longer feel the need to explain yourself. When you stop trying to justify your actions, when you stop seeking validation or reassurance from others, you've taken back your power. It's a quiet shift, one that often goes unnoticed by others, but you feel it. You realize that you no longer need their approval or their explanation to feel secure in your choices. Emotionally strong people are the hardest to manipulate because they know their own worth. They don't need anyone to validate their feelings, actions, or decisions. They've learned to rely on themselves, and they understand that emotional detachment isn't about being distant. It's about maintaining control over how they respond to external events. When you stop reacting, when you don't let anyone's behavior dictate how you feel, you've shifted the power dynamic completely in your favor. The truth is, manipulation relies on a person's emotional reaction. If someone can get a rise out of you, they know they have control over you. But when you refuse to react, when you remain calm and centered, they lose their grip. They can't manipulate someone who's emotionally steady, someone who's not swayed by their games. It's not that emotionally strong people are immune to betrayal or manipulation. They just don't let it affect them the way others do. They recognize manipulation for what it is, and they don't fall for the traps. Instead, they choose how to respond, and that's what makes all the difference. And here's the kicker. When you've emotionally detached from a situation, when you no longer give someone the reactions they expect, you start to see who they really are. The mask slips, and suddenly the person who once had all the power over you is left with nothing. So how do you handle situations where someone's trying to manipulate or control your emotions? How do you stay in control when the pressure's on? Let's talk about that next. So, when is it time to walk away for good? Sometimes the hardest part isn't just dealing with betrayal or manipulation. It's knowing when to walk away. When you finally realize that someone's true colors have been revealed, that's when the real work begins. Walking away isn't always easy, but sometimes it's the only option for preserving your peace and moving forward with your life. And here's the hard truth. Some people just aren't worth keeping in your life. That's when you have to make the decision to let go for good. The fear of being alone often holds us back. We're wired to crave connection, and the thought of walking away from someone, especially someone we've trusted, can feel terrifying. It feels like we're losing a part of ourselves. But in reality, walking away isn't about losing. It's about finding yourself. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your emotional strength. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They knew that true strength doesn't come from holding on to unhealthy relationships or toxic people. True strength comes from knowing when to let go and when to walk away. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you continue to engage with toxic people, you allow their negativity to seep into your own soul." And that's something the Stoics believed we must avoid at all costs. So how do you know when it's time to walk away completely? It's not always easy to recognize, but there are signs. If someone's presence consistently brings you stress, confusion, or pain, it's time to step back. If their actions go against your values, if they manipulate you or treat you in ways that violate your self-worth, that's your cue. Walking away isn't about punishing the other person. It's about choosing to protect your emotional well-being. Let's talk about the power of solitude for a moment. We often confuse being alone with being lonely. But in reality, solitude is one of the most powerful tools for emotional healing and growth. When you detach from toxic people, you create space to reconnect with yourself. You create space to reflect on what you want in life and who you want to be. And in that space, you find strength you never knew you had. Solitude isn't about isolation, it's about connection to yourself. It's about clearing the emotional clutter that comes from unhealthy relationships and rediscovering what truly matters to you. The Stoics embraced solitude as a way to find clarity and focus. They understood that peace isn't something you find through others. It's something you find within yourself. Now let's get practical. How do you start to detach emotionally and walk away from a situation that's no longer serving you? Here's a step-by-step guide. Step 1. Acknowledge the truth. The first step in emotional detachment is accepting the reality of the situation. The sooner you acknowledge the truth, whether it's that someone has lied to you, betrayed you, or no longer serves your well-being, the sooner you can take control of your response. Ignoring the truth only prolongs your pain. Once you accept what's happened, you can move forward. Step 2. Set boundaries. Walking away isn't always about physically leaving, it's about setting boundaries. This might mean limiting contact, taking a step back emotionally, or creating space to process your feelings. It's about taking control of the relationship and determining how much emotional energy you're willing to invest. Step 3. Let go of guilt. One of the hardest things to do is to let go of the guilt that comes with walking away. You might feel like you're abandoning someone, or that you're being selfish, but the truth is, you're not abandoning anyone. You're choosing to protect yourself, your peace, and your emotional health. Letting go of guilt is essential to moving on. As Seneca wisely put it, the greatest remedy for deceit is to avoid excessive trust in others. In other words, don't feel guilty for protecting yourself from harm. Step 4. Focus on self-care. Once you've detached, the next step is to rebuild yourself. Focus on your own growth and well-being. This is a time for self-care, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Spend time doing things that make you feel good, things that nourish your soul. Reconnect with your passions, your hobbies, and the things that make you feel alive. This is the time to rediscover your sense of self outside of anyone else's influence. Step 5. Move forward with confidence. The final step is to move forward with confidence. Understand that walking away doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've grown. It means you've learned how to protect your energy and make choices that align with your values. And with this newfound clarity, you can move forward into healthier, more fulfilling relationships and experiences. The Stoics believed that everything happens for a reason, and that every challenge we face is an opportunity to grow. When you walk away from someone who no longer serves your peace, you're making space for the right people, the right experiences, and the right opportunities to enter your life. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. You don't lose people, you just find out who was never real. That's the final lesson in Stoicism. The people who truly belong in your life will be there, even when you stop bending over backwards to keep them there. And the ones who were never truly genuine, they'll fade away, leaving room for better things to come into your life. So when the time comes to walk away, know this: you're not losing anything. You're simply choosing to reclaim your peace, your power, and your life. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered today. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting people out or becoming cold-hearted. It's about reclaiming control over your own emotional state and recognizing when someone's actions no longer align with your values or peace of mind. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control others, but we can control how we respond to them. And sometimes the best response is to step back and create space for clarity. Remember, distance often reveals the truth. When you stop reacting, you shift the power dynamic and people begin to show their true colors. Whether they try to manipulate you or fall away from your life completely, that's a sign that your emotional detachment is working. You're no longer controlled by someone else's actions or expectations. The Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca, taught us to focus on what is within our control and to let go of what isn't. When you face betrayal, manipulation, or deceit, you have the power to choose how you respond. You can choose peace, resilience, and wisdom over anger or revenge, and by doing so, you become the master of your own emotional world. I want to leave you with this thought. Walking away from toxic people or situations is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's about knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and choosing your peace over unnecessary drama. You don't lose people, you just find out who was never real. And with that clarity, you make room for those who genuinely add value to your life. So, has this happened to you before? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your story. How did you handle it when you saw someone's true colors? Were you able to walk away, or did it take some time to see the truth? If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more content that helps you grow stronger and wiser. Let's continue this conversation in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.